On our wedding night, my husband apologized to me. He told me that for the sake of his true love, I had to kill myself. Go ahead, he said, poisoned wine, a dagger, a noose, or the river.
Pick one.
I looked him in the eye and asked, can I choose to be fucked to death? Julian's first wife didn't just die, she was driven to suicide by him. On their wedding night, Julian, the pampered heir to the Marquis of Sterling, had fallen hard for a girl selling cherry pies down on West Street. He wanted to make her his main wife. His family, of course, went ballistic. He was a lord. How could he marry a commoner with flour under her fingernails? Lady Sterling, his mother, took charge and arranged a marriage with the daughter of a high-ranking treasurer. On the wedding night, Julian unleashed hell. He verbally assaulted the poor girl, humiliating her until her spirit broke. Unable to bear the shame, she swallowed a lethal dose of arsenic. Her family, bought off with a hefty sum from the Sterling estate, kept their mouths shut. After that, finding Julian a wife became a nightmare. He even spread the word, send me a daughter and I'll send you back a corpse. But there are always parents who care more about climbing the social ladder than their children's lives. Like my father, Baron Vance. My mother, his mistress, begged on her knees, but it was useless. My stepmother, Lady Vance, sneered, don't worry, Scarlet is beautiful and gentle. The heir won't be able to resist her. I knew this was her idea. My mother was stunning. In his youth, my father had neglected Lady Vance for my mother, and that bitch held a grudge. My stepsister, Victoria, chipped in, who knows. That first wife, Annabelle, wasn't ugly either. Lady Vance shot her a glare. Victoria continued, I don't get why the Marquis won't let Julian marry the woman he loves. So what if she sells pies? True love shouldn't care about status. Naive little idiot. My mother cried until her eyes were swollen shut. I whispered to her, don't worry, Mom. He can't kill me. On my wedding night, I met Julian for the first time. He was tall, handsome, and looked perpetually moody. When he offered me my choice of death, his voice was creepily gentle. Go ahead, he said, gesturing to a tray, poison wine, a dagger, a rope, or jumping in the river.
Pick one.
I looked him in the eye. Can I choose to be fucked to death? His gentle mask cracked. He snarled, calling me a shameless slut.
Oh.
I tilted my head. Isn't that just marital foreplay? Seeing I wasn't going to play along, he lost his patience. He grabbed the poison wine and tried to force it down my throat. Hilarious. He clearly didn't know my skill set. I was smart from birth. My father hired tutors for piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting. I crushed my sister in everything. Lady Vance hated it. She claimed I was sickly and sent me off to train with the castle guards to toughen up. Combat training was brutal. I didn't have time for books, so my academics slipped. My skin got tanned, my hands calloused. Lady Vance was thrilled, thinking she'd ruin me without lifting a finger. Little did she know, she played right into my hands. What good is painting when you're in danger? Can you recite poetry until your attacker dies of shame? Hardly, like right now. Julian tried to pour poison down my throat. I whimpered, no, please, no, acting terrified, but the second he got close, I delivered a precise karate chop to his neck. Lights out. When Julian woke up, he found himself stripped buck naked and tied to the bedpost spread eagle. He turned beet red, a mix of shame and rage. You shameless whore. What are you doing? Let me go. You might have my body, but you'll never have my heart. Who gives a shit about his heart? I pried his jaw open and poured a jug of aphrodisiac wine down his throat. He thought it was poison. First, he cursed me, then he begged, and finally, he cried like a baby. I thought he was tough. Speaking of tough, Julian had a boner all night under me. Again and again. He wept tears of humiliation, swearing he would kill me. I laughed, slapping his face lightly. Death by snusnu. It's a good way to go, baby. By morning, his legs were so like jelly, he couldn't get out of bed. I went to serve tea to my in-laws alone. They guessed what happened last night. The Sterling family had already lost one daughter-in-law. They weren't going to let another one drop. Lady Sterling held my hand, beaming. Well done. Then she whispered, give me a fat grandson soon. I blushed and whispered, yes, ma'am. Julian slept until afternoon. I had already untied him, naked as a jaybird. He hid under the covers, glaring at me. Where are my clothes? I tossed him his scented robes. He scrambled into them. Once dressed, he realized he was free. He beckoned me. Come here. I walked over. His eyes turned murderous, and he lunged for my throat. I was ready. I stepped back and planted a kick right in his gut. He crashed to the floor, wheezing. You dare hit me? Technically, I kicked him. He tried to crawl up.
So, I pounced on him.
Hubby, why are you on the floor? Do you like doing it on the carpet? You're kinky. I started groping him, my face feigning shyness. He went pale. What are you doing? He tried to push me off but couldn't move me. Scarlet, don't push your luck. He gritted his teeth. Then, to his horror, he realized he was getting rock hard again. He gasped. What did you do to me? I bit his earlobe, just a special massage technique to get the juices flowing. Do you like it, Julian? Julian didn't leave the bedroom for 2 days. I had food delivered. He ate like a horse, replenishing his fluids. On the 3rd day, we were supposed to visit my family. While I was changing, he made a run for it, crawled out through a drainage grate in the garden. We didn't notice he was gone until the carriage was ready. Lady Sterling looked like she swallowed a lemon. It's okay, Mother, I said sweetly. I can go alone. Guilt-ridden, she took a jade bracelet off her wrist and gave it to me. I went home with 3 carts of gifts. My mother breathed a sigh of relief. She hadn't slept for 2 days, terrified she'd hear news of my death. Lady Vance was happy, too. See, I told you the heir wouldn't be able to resist. She was happy because my father got a promotion, and my brother got a spot in the Royal Guard. Only my sister, Victoria, was upset. She pulled me aside. Did Julian change his mind? Did he fall in love with you? I acted shy. He was just temporarily mesmerized by my beauty. She looked disappointed, muttering, Is there really no undying love in this world? I didn't go straight back to the Marquis mansion. I went to West Street. Julian was there, right in front of the pie shop. The girl, Molly, was wearing red, looking bright and lively. Her voice cut through the street noise. Julian was playing assistant, wiping tables. They exchanged sweet glances like newlyweds. I walked up. Molly greeted me. Can I get you a cherry pie, ma'am? I looked at Julian. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. He covered his crotch, then his face. You don't see me. You don't see me. I turned my gaze to Molly and smiled gently. I'm here to pick up my husband. She froze, realizing who I was. Her face went complicated. Julian tried to retreat into the shop. I caught up in 2 strides.
Darling.
He pressed himself against the wall.
Don't touch me.
Not touching him wasn't an option. I ran my hand over his chest. We could do it standing up. He turned crimson. Scarlet. It's broad daylight. In someone else's house. Someone else's? He bought the shop and the back rooms for Molly using the family accounts. That means it belongs to the Sterlings. Which means it belongs to me. But I'm not a monster, I sighed. Husband, public indecency isn't gentlemanly. Hold it in. I'll satisfy you tonight. He looked like he might faint from anger. Molly walked in. Julian tried to push me away. Failed. My stance was solid as a rock. From the door, it looked like he was fondling my breasts. Molly gasped. I squealed. Oh, stop it. Julian. People are watching. Julian. A-R-G-H-H-H. Molly looked crushed. The heir and his wife are so affectionate. Julian. No, Molly, listen to me. Molly ran out. Julian tried to chase her, but I grabbed his arm. He tried to run, didn't move an inch. Let go of me, he roared. I let go. Thud. He smashed face first into the doorframe. Instant goose egg on his forehead, ignoring the pain. He stumbled out. Molly hadn't gone far. She was crying by the pie rack. Her brave tears made Julian tear up too. Molly, he choked out. I don't love her. My heart only beats for you. Molly sobbed.
Julian.
Forget it. I don't care about titles. As long as I can be by your side. Even as a mistress, I'm willing.
No, Molly.
Julian grabbed her hands. I will marry you properly. I only recognize you as my wife.
Julian.
Molly. I rolled my eyes and said, Can you two stop reciting tragic love confessions in the middle of the street? You're blocking customers. The spell shattered. An old woman trying to buy pies shoved between them with a snort. Either kiss or move. Molly's face turned scarlet. Julian looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. I crossed my arms. Finished. Julian glared at me. Scarlet, why are you even here? To take my husband home. I won't go. I smiled. You think that's a choice? He straightened, suddenly gathering the scraps of his dignity. I love Molly. I don't care what you do to me. I will never love you. Oh no, I said flatly. Whatever shall I do without the love of a man who cries after 3 rounds? The nearby customers burst into laughter. Julian's ears turned bright red. Scarlet, he hissed. Molly bit her lip, clearly hurt on his behalf. Honestly, she was prettier when she wasn't talking. I looked her over carefully.
Clean apron.
Soft hands. No jewelry except for a cheap hairpin Julian had probably bought her. She really did love him. How unfortunate.
You sighed dramatically. Fine.
Since your love is apparently stronger than death itself, let's settle this properly. Julian narrowed his eyes. What are you planning now? Simple. I smiled sweetly. You want to marry Molly, right? His eyes lit up instantly. Molly looked hopeful too. Then earn it. Julian frowned. Earn it. You've spent your entire life wasting the Sterling family's money while playing tragic lover. Let's see if your love survives reality. I pointed at the pie shop. Starting today, you get nothing from the Marquis estate. No servants. No allowance. No fine clothes. No horses. No family accounts. His face stiffened. If you can support Molly entirely on your own for 1 year, I continued, I'll personally ask father to grant you a divorce. Molly's eyes widened. Julian immediately said, Fine. Too fast. Idiot. I tilted my head. You sure? Yes. No family money. I said yes. No using the Sterling name to bully people into helping you. His jaw tightened. I know. And I added pleasantly, if you fail, you come back obediently and stop tormenting every woman your parents pick for you. Julian sneered. I won't fail. I clapped lightly. Wonderful. Then I turned and got back into the carriage. Behind me, Molly whispered shakily. Julian, can we really do this? He answered with absolute confidence. For love, anything is possible. I nearly laughed myself sick on the ride home. 3 days later, Julian returned to the Marquis estate at midnight, covered in flour.
His expensive boots were gone.
His hair smelled like burnt sugar. Lady Sterling stared at her beloved son in horror. Julian? He looked like a war refugee. Apparently, kneading dough before sunrise was hard. Apparently, hauling sacks of flour wrecked soft, noble hands. Apparently, customers didn't care about tragic love stories if the pies tasted burnt. And apparently, Molly cried whenever he argued with customers, which made him even more stressed. He saw me sipping tea and immediately exploded. You set me up. I blinked innocently.
How?
You knew. Knew what? That living costs money. His face twisted. Lady Sterling finally understood what happened and nearly died laughing behind her fan. Even the Marquis coughed suspiciously into his sleeve. Julian pointed at me furiously. You manipulated me. Oh. I rested my chin on my hand. Did I force you to declare eternal love in the middle of the street? You. Did I force you to spend family money on another woman while married? You. Did I force you to threaten your wives into suicide? That shut him up. The room went silent. For the first time since I met him, Julian looked ashamed. Just for a second. Then his pride came roaring back. I still love Molly. I nodded. I know. His brows furrowed, clearly confused by my calmness. I smiled faintly. Julian, love isn't the problem. You are. Lady Sterling nearly choked on her tea. I stood and walked over slowly. You claim you love Molly, I said softly. But what have you actually given her besides trouble? His lips parted. You made her the target of gossip. You dragged her into conflict with your family. You used estate money recklessly in her name. And when things got difficult, you ran home after 3 days. His face turned ugly. Molly, who had quietly followed him back to the estate, stood frozen in the doorway. She had heard everything. I looked at her kindly. Molly, do you know what kind of man Julian is? Julian whipped around. Scarlet. I ignored him. When his parents opposed your relationship, did he give up his title? Molly went pale. When they arranged his first marriage, did he refuse at the altar? Silence. When his first wife died, did he expose himself as the cause? Julian's breathing became ragged. And now, I finished gently. The second life becomes difficult. And where does he run? Molly slowly looked at Julian. At his silk inner robes. At the servants hovering nearby. At the warm mansion he swore he didn't need. Her expression cracked. Julian, she whispered. No, he reached for her desperately. Molly, listen to me. You said love was enough. It is. Then why did you come back here? Julian froze. For once in his life, the pampered young master had no answer. Molly started crying silently. Not dramatic sobs. Just quiet heartbreak. Honestly, that was the first moment I pitied her. She really had believed him. Julian panicked and grabbed her wrist. Molly, I'll go back with you right now. She pulled away. For the first time, his face went white. Molly looked exhausted. Julian, I think you love the idea of suffering for love more than you actually love me. That hit him harder than any kick I'd given him. She bowed to the Marquis and Lady Sterling with trembling composure, then turned and walked away. Julian stood there like his soul had left his body. Then he suddenly ran after her.
Lady Sterling sighed deeply.
The Marquis muttered, That boy is an idiot. I took another sip of tea. Lady Sterling looked at me with complicated eyes. Scarlet, are you really willing to let him divorce you? I thought about it seriously. Julian was handsome.
Rich.
Fun to bully. And surprisingly obedient once properly pinned down.
But exhausting.
I smiled lazily. We'll see. At that exact moment, Julian stormed back into the hall.
Alone.
His eyes were red. He looked wrecked. Then, he marched straight toward me. Lady Sterling gasped. Julian, what are you doing? Ignoring everyone, he stopped in front of me and said hoarsely, How did you know? I raised an eyebrow. Know what? That Molly would leave. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I laughed softly. Because, unlike you, Julian, I know the difference between being loved and being indulged. Julian found Molly 3 days later. She had already left West Street. Left the pie shop, too. No goodbye. No dramatic reunion. Just gone. He searched like a madman. For the first time in his useless noble life, he actually suffered. He stopped eating properly. Stopped sleeping. Started drinking. The servants whispered that the young master wandered the streets at night like a ghost. I listened while eating peeled grapes in the courtyard. How tragic, I said. Lady Sterling eyed me cautiously these days. She had realized something important. Her son was no longer the one in control. Not even close. A month later, Julian staggered into my room drunk. He smelled like wine and rain. His eyes were bloodshot. Scarlet, he said hoarsely. I was brushing my hair. Yes. He stared at me for a long time, then suddenly laughed bitterly. You won. I set the brush down. Did I? She left me. His voice cracked slightly. She said she was tired. I hummed. Reasonable. He looked at me strangely. Why are you like this? Like what? You don't love me. I almost laughed. Of course not. He flinched anyway. Interesting. I walked over slowly and lifted his chin. You threatened me with murder on our wedding night, remember?
His throat bobbed.
Then, unexpectedly, he whispered, I know. For the first time, there was no arrogance in him. No spoiled cruelty. Just exhaustion. Honestly, it made him much prettier. I smiled faintly. Good. Then I kissed him. Julian froze. After that night, he stopped resisting me. Not because he loved me. Not at first. But because people are weak creatures. Especially lonely people. I fed him warm meals. Managed his household. Sat beside him when he drank himself sick. Dragged him to bed when he passed out in the study. Handled the estate accounts his parents no longer trusted him with. And every night, I climbed into his bed. Slowly, he became dependent on me without realizing it. A vine wrapping around a tree. By winter, he stopped speaking Molly's name. By spring, he stopped leaving my rooms. And by summer, he looked at me the way starving men look at water. Pathetic, but useful. When I became pregnant, the entire Sterling estate erupted with joy. Lady Sterling cried on the spot. The Marquis immediately began discussing heirs. Julian looked stunned when I placed his hand on my stomach. A child, he whispered. I leaned against him lazily. His fingers trembled. For a moment, he looked genuinely happy. Then, he hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. Scarlet, he murmured against my hair, stay with me forever? I smiled into his shoulder. Of course. After all, a dying man always clings hardest to the person holding the cup. The poison I chose was slow. Very slow. Too fast would invite suspicion. Too painful would attract physicians.
No.
I preferred elegance. Tiny amounts. In his wine, his soup, his medicine. Just enough to weaken the body little by little. At first, Julian merely tired easily. Then came the coughing, the fevers, the headaches. Doctors blamed stress. Then weak lungs. Then bad blood. No one suspected me. Why would they? I was the perfect wife. I stayed by his bedside every night. Fed him medicine personally. Held him when he shook with chills. Even Lady Sterling wept while praising my devotion. Scarlet, she said once, clutching my hands, the heavens blessed our family by sending you here. I smiled modestly. If only she knew. Julian grew thinner over the years. Softer too. Illness sanded down the sharp edges of his pride. He stopped shouting. Stopped raging. Sometimes, late at night, he would simply lie with his head in my lap while I stroked his hair. Scarlet, he whispered once, half asleep, did you ever hate me? I looked down at him, at the man who once handed women poison as casually as flowers. Yes, I answered honestly. He closed his eyes. I deserved it. Then he coughed blood into a handkerchief. I handed him another calmly. By the time our son turned 5, Julian could barely walk without assistance. The Marquis had already retired. Lady Sterling's health was failing too. And the estate, the servants, the finances, the businesses, the political connections, all passed quietly into my hands. No one objected. Who else could manage them? Certainly not the bedridden heir. People began calling me the true head of the Sterling family long before the title became official. Behind closed doors, even the stewards bowed to me first. Lady Sterling noticed. One evening, she sighed while watching me review account books. You would have made a terrifying man. I didn't look up. Good thing I'm not one. She laughed until she started coughing. Julian died in winter. Snow covered the courtyard outside his chambers. He looked terribly beautiful near the end. Fragile.
Pale. Completely mine. I
sat beside him while he struggled to breathe. Our son was asleep in the next room. The physicians had already given up. Julian reached weakly for my hand. I let him hold it. His eyes were unfocused now. Scarlet. Yes. Did you ever love me?
Ah.
There it was. The final question. I looked at him quietly, then leaned down and kissed his cold forehead. You gave me power, I whispered softly. And in this world, Julian, that's far more useful than love. A tear slipped from the corner of his eye, whether from heartbreak, regret, or simply pain. I didn't care. A few moments later, his grip loosened, and the heir of the Sterling family died in my hands. At his funeral, every noble house in the capital attended. They all praised me endlessly. The loyal wife, the grieving widow, the brilliant matriarch who supported her sick husband until the very end. I wore pure white mourning robes, held my son's hand, and accepted every bow with perfect elegance. From the crowd, I noticed a familiar face. Molly, older now, simpler clothes. She stared at Julian's coffin silently for a long time. Then her eyes met mine. For a moment, I wondered if she knew, if she understood what kind of woman I truly was. But in the end, she only lowered her head and left quietly. I watched her disappear into the snow, then turned back toward the morning hall. The servants were waiting for instructions. The stewards were waiting for approval. The Sterling family was waiting for its ruler. And I smiled.